Apple's new 15-inch MacBook Air is everything I've ever dreamed of in a laptop, and I've actually been enjoying it so much that I've considered replacing my current 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro at home for the new 15-inch Air, but unfortunately, there are 3 reasons why I just can't do it. But before I get into explaining them, I've got to talk about why this new Air is just so dang tempting. Now, of course, the 15-inch MacBook Air is a really simple product. It's the 13-inch with the M2 chip, but bigger for $200 more. Pretty simple, right? Well, not really, because there are a lot of little upgrades beneath the surface that you probably didn't think of. And while some of these seem simple, they're actually a pretty big deal in terms of everyday usability. The first thing I want to mention is that the large 15-inch size combined with the very thin design makes this MacBook feel like no other MacBook in history. It just doesn't seem real to be holding something with such a big display, but it feels light and insanely thin. This MacBook is probably the first one that would instantly blow the mind of anyone used to using Windows laptops, because when you open the lid and take a look at how thin the bottom portion of it is, it just doesn't seem to make any sense that Apple packed this much performance and battery life into that little amount of space. It'll blow their minds even more when they see that the size of the entire motherboard is just slightly larger than the palm of a hand, which basically shows Apple's dominance in the laptop market, especially since this thing runs with no fans at all. But in terms of how this differs compared to the 13-inch model, you get a very large trackpad with tons of room for multi-finger gestures and making those long drag and drops without having to lift your fingers. The keyboard has also been perfected over the last couple of years, no longer having those terrible butterfly key failures. The new Magic Keyboard feels great and has proven to be greatly reliable. But the big new standout feature is the 15.3-inch display, which looks massive when compared with the 13-inch, and it truly does show you more content on the screen, like when you're web browsing, but especially when you're trying to multitask with multiple open windows. The 13-inch display just doesn't cut it when you're trying to multitask with 2 pages open at once side by side. It's just not big enough for a convenient experience, and the 15-inch Air finally delivers that. But there are actually some bonus features from that new 15-inch display that you probably haven't thought about, including perspective. Even though the bezel size is the same between the 13 and 15-inch models, the 15-inch Air actually seems to have thinner bezels because the size of the display is so much bigger in comparison, so the bezels feel slimmer even though they're physically the same. On top of that, literally, we have the notch, which once again seems smaller because the width of the display is larger, so the notch seems to take up less room. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but because the notch is built into the menu bar, the 13-inch model's limited size actually makes it so some of your open menu bar apps disappear completely, which is extremely annoying. With the 15-inch, the added amount of space allows for more text and apps at the top, which is a real-world benefit nobody talks about. So honestly, for just $200 more, I'd say that the larger 15-inch display is definitely worth it, but that's actually not all you're getting for that extra 200 bucks. Right off the bat, the 15-inch Air comes with the upgraded 10-core GPU at the base price, giving you anywhere between 15 to 20% more graphics performance for free. So the difference is actually only $100 if you were to get the 13-inch and upgrade anyway. And then on top of that, the 15-inch model gets the 35-watt dual USB-C charger for free in the box, also a $20 value. So that brings the difference to only $80 between the two. So with that said, it's pretty clear that the 15-inch MacBook Air is the best value Mac I've ever seen. The first time I heard the speaker comparison between the 13 and 15-inch models, I was instantly blown away by how good the speakers sound on the new 15. Right away, you can notice that it has a fullness to it, encompassing all of the frequency ranges and putting them together while also being able to discern the highs from the mids and lows very easily. Just listen. The speakers on the 13-inch seem like it's mostly just highs in comparison, which is odd because it was already destroying the speakers of basically all other Windows laptops out there, and the 15-inch is another big step on top of that. And this right here is very important to me because when I watch YouTube or other content on my MacBook, I don't want to go and have to grab my AirPods. I just want to turn it on right away and have it sound amazing. So bravo to Apple for upgrading the speakers on the 15-inch. Now getting into the hidden performance differences, even though the 13 and 15 both have identical 8-core CPUs, the 15-inch model is actually 6% faster when under full load for 10 minutes in the Cinebench R23 stress test. That's only because the 15-inch has a larger metal chassis that dissipates heat better than the smaller 13-inch, therefore being able to keep the M2 chip at higher clock speeds for longer before having to slow it down to maintain cool temperatures. Now, even though the 15-inch model performs better, it still suffers from that issue of not having a fan if you're doing really intense work. For example, we compared it to the 14-inch M2 Pro MacBook Pro, and even though that machine is only 24% faster in CPU and 60% faster in GPU performance, the 15-inch Air took a huge 2.3 times longer to finish the test due to thermal throttling. And that point right there finally brings me to the 3 reasons why I just can't get myself to sell my 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro and buy the new 15-inch Air. The first one is the fact that Apple just released their new game porting toolkit, which means that I can actually play the game that I've wanted to play on my current MacBook, which is Diablo 4. Just look at Andrew Tsai running it at 60 FPS on the same M1 Max MacBook Pro that I have, which is perfect. The M2 Air obviously performs much worse in terms of graphics performance, and the fanless design wouldn't be able to handle long gaming sessions without slowing down the performance even more, so because of that, the 15-inch Air won't cut it. As for the second reason, it's gonna be really hard to give up that XDR display on the 16-inch because it truly does give it really good contrast ratios and makes the colors pop much more for watching HDR content and movies. But even more than that, it has 120Hz ProMotion technology, which makes web browsing super smooth. Just look at the difference in this slow motion clip. On top of that, it allows you to get over 60 FPS while gaming, all the way up to 120, while of course, 60 is the hard limit on the 15-inch Air. And then finally, I found that I actually used my HDMI and SD card slot over this past year more often than I thought. And I recently purchased a digital camera, so I've started using the SD card slot much more often for editing the photos, so it's been very convenient. So for those 3 reasons, I don't think I can make the switch to the 15-inch Air. But for people who don't necessarily care enough about those things to spend the extra cash, the new 15-inch Air is the best value MacBook ever made, at least in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.